reside in Rio Rancho. David Marler resides in the Rio Rancho, and head of the Albuquerque chapter of MUFON also resides in Rio Rancho. No wonder Greg Hall, the mayor of Rio Rancho, said that Rio Rancho today is the official UFO Research Day. So many of us live right here in Rio Rancho, and also the fact that many of the Rio Rancho residents actually work at Los Alamos, and some of them work at Sandia Base. So it's very significant. But anyway, we have been listening to some fascinating ideas, including the idea that possibly, the military could present a false information regarding aliens as a cover story to conceal secret projects. Now, that doesn't mean that the aliens don't exist. Maybe they do. But looking at the technology, it's very possible that this whole alien theory and story may have been purposely created by the Air Force to throw us down the track. But that's just one possibility, because we really don't know what's real. Reality is. To somebody, reality is different. We each live in our own world, and I like this saying that some people say, you are living in your own world. And how true that is. We are all living in our own world, and that's reality, individual reality to each of us. So we cannot compare one reality to another because it may be different. We still don't know about reality. I would like to just make a note, that interesting note that most people need to know, and that is the importance of the German scientists who arrived in New Mexico right after World War II in 1945 in Operation Paperclip Program. At Kirtland Army Air Base in 1945, hundreds of German scientists and engineers arrived from Ohio, and many of them were sent to White Sands Missile Rangers, and then, they were the fathers, basically, of American rocketry, and also other types of aircraft, such as flying wing prototypes that the Germans developed in the late 1930s and early 1940s, and many of these were sent to, German scientists were sent to White Sands, and some of the scientists and engineers were sent to Los Alamos National Laboratory, and eventually they became very influential in the black budget programs and biogenetics as well. And this is a photo of Sandia Base in Albuquerque, and you'll see the mountains in the distance. This is the underground storage facility that has existed since 1947, and in 1992 they allegedly closed it down and moved to another section of the Kirtland Air Force Base. And so we're talking about various interesting facts that happened in 1947. When it comes to UFOs, New Mexico is not only about the Roswell incident, alleged incident of 1947, and I like to use the word alleged in all of this. Have you ever heard of an alleged crash of an unknown object near San Antonio, New Mexico in August of 1945? You know, some people have heard of these alleged incidents. Have you ever heard of an alleged crash of an unknown object that reportedly took place sometime around July 3rd, 1947 in the plains of San Agustin, southwest of Magdalena, between Magdalena and Datil? There's a location called Very Large Array, VLA area. The plains of San Agustin is not too far from this area, but on July 3rd, something allegedly crashed. Now, did you know that on March 15th, 16th, 17th, for 3 days in a row in 1950, every day around noontime, hundreds of Farmington, New Mexico residents witnessed hundreds of silver disc-shaped objects maneuvering in the sky over their town. How many have ever heard of this incident of 1950? Very few people. We're not talking about hundreds of residents seeing one or two objects, but we're talking about hundreds of Farmington residents seeing anywhere from 300 to 400 silver disc-shaped objects maneuvering over Farmington, New Mexico in 1950 for 3 days in a row. This is the newspaper from Farmington. Craft seen by hundreds, but there's a typo error because the reporter may have been excited about it. He misspelled hundreds, but anyway, craft seen by hundreds, all right? Speed estimated at 1,000 miles per hour, altitude 20,000 feet. I know, but not too many people know about this incident because right after this incident took place, for 3 days in a row around lunchtime, government came, people from Washington, D.C. came to Farmington and told the people in Farmington, don't discuss about this incident. And this is the reason why, during the height of Cold War, which was at that time 1950, it was during the Cold War, many residents of Farmington cooperated. That's right. Anyway, there are names of people who verified these amazing sightings in Farmington. In fact, a few years ago, I visited Farmington and visited the senior center over there because the senior center is probably the only location where you could probably interview the witnesses of Farmington incident. And I was successful in tracking down one witness who really backed up the claim that he had seen hundreds of silver objects during lunchtime. And these witnesses are rapidly going away. That's why we need more people to investigate and interview these witnesses. Now, the Farmington incident of 1950 was reported in Los Angeles Times. Scores report seeing saucers flying information over New Mexico, and actually this is hundreds, not just scores, but hundreds. And there's only one photo, which is not a great photo, but it's a black and white photo of what people had seen over Farmington, New Mexico. And this photo only shows about 6 or 7 objects. But there were anywhere from 300 to 400 round-shaped objects. Some of the objects, if you look at it, is very interesting because it seems like there is some kind of dome right here. But anyway, I have no idea what that incident was, except that it's a fact. It's a fact. Now, let's talk about some other things. Have you heard of an alleged crash of a disc-shaped object outside of Aztec, New Mexico, that allegedly took place in March of 1948? Now, some people say this incident outside of Aztec is just a hoax created by people like, several people. And it was featured in a book by Frank Scully. But there are actual witnesses in the Dulce area who reportedly said that they had seen a strange object flying in 1948 on that day towards Aztec. So I don't know if this incident was a real incident. I don't know. I have to have an open mind. Now, have you ever heard of the Socorro incident of April 24th, 1964? This is a famous incident that took place outside of Socorro, New Mexico on April 24th, 1964 by policeman Lonnie Zamora. Lonnie Zamora reported sighting an egg-shaped object and outside of the town of Socorro around 4 p.m. in 1964 in April. While he was chasing a high-speeding car near Socorro, he heard a loud explosion in the desert
and he abandoned the high-speeding car, and he went towards the desert, and Lord behold, in the distance, he saw an egg-shaped object with an insignia about 300 to 400 feet before him, in front of him, just sitting on the desert with a tripod. This is a very fascinating incident. It was fully investigated by the Air Force. Dr. Alan Hynek came with his contingent of the Project Blue Book, and he approved an official stamp of approval for this incident, the authenticity of this incident. Something happened, and contrary to the recent allegation that this was a prank created by some students of New Mexico State Tech over there, that they used some kind of a balloons to create a hoax. This is not the case. This was thoroughly investigated by the Air Force, and this is one of the few incidents where Dr. Hynek said there is something to this incident that's definitely a real incident. One of the most interesting aspects of this incident is that Lonnie Zamora saw an egg-shaped object with tripods, and he saw two beings dressed in white coveralls touching the object. And Lonnie Zamora never described these two individuals as aliens. He just described them as normal looking, except that their height was they were a short stature. They were very short, but they were wearing white coveralls, and there was a strange insignia on this egg-shaped object. We don't know whether this object was from outer space or from our government. And this is the whole idea about this whole UFO scene. We don't know. And let me give you a confession. I've been investigating the UFO phenomenon since 1961, and I have interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people. I visited hundreds of locations of interest, and I wrote hundreds and hundreds of articles about this topic. I've never written any single book, because my belief is that even though I have investigated thoroughly this so-called UFO phenomenon, I can say that I am no expert, and I have no knowledge of what the real nature of this phenomenon is. I'm the first to admit that after more than 50 years of research,